Hello and welcome again. Now, in Nigeria, the traditional expectation is that families will care for their elderly members. However, economic pressures and the demands of modern life often lead to situations where aging parents themselves become primary caregivers to their grandchildren or conversely face neglect. This dynamic places significant strain on the elderly who may already be grappling with health challenges such as arthritis, hypertension, and even diabetes. Now, families frequently struggle to manage, these health issues due to the rising cost of medication and limited access to quality healthcare services. Now, with all these factors, yet the concept of old people's home is not widely embraced in Nigeria. Cultural norms emphasize familial responsibility for elder care, leading to a scarcity of formal care facilities. Existing homes are few and often lack adequate resources, resulting in limited access for those in need. Now, this situation raises questions about the societal perception of institutional elder care and the readiness to adopt such models in the face of changing family structures.
So for this very interesting conversation, we have with us joining Dr. Jumoke Odunsi. She's a senior citizens care expert, and also joining us via video chat is Mr. Tokunbo Odebunmi, a veteran broadcast retiree. You're welcome, gentlemen and lady. Thank you very much for having, having our time this morning to be with us.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning, Judith.
I'd like to start with you, Dr. Odunsi. First off, I'd also like to tell that I have an elderly father of whom we're taking care of at the moment. My father has done so well.
He has like a good son. You're a good son. It's okay.
Can I have the moment, Judith? Just a second. We've cared for him so far, and it's been very tedious. So I understand absolutely what families are going through, what the elderly are also going through regarding caregiving in Nigeria, because it's very scarce. It's also very expensive. So it makes me personally wonder how many other families and whether there's a demand for this kind of care, or whether it's just because of the expense of it that makes people not bother going into elderly caregiving.
Well, thank you. And well done.
Thank you very much.
Really good job with that. The demand for care for older persons is actually huge. However, not many people are able to afford the cost of care. That's one. Secondly, some people don't even know that they have access to secondary caregivers because traditionally we believe that families should take care of their own. But that comes a time when family might not be sufficient in terms of availability, in terms of knowledge and skills, and several other things. They might not be sufficient to take care of their aged ones directly. So that's where secondary caregivers come in. Some people don't even know that they exist, And of course, not everybody is able to afford the cost.
And are there cultural interferences in this process?
Absolutely.
Like, for instance, if you remember, Judith told about the fact that grandparents become nannies. That's mostly the fate of most grandparents. Or if you're not, then you're neglected.
Aging is a challenging situation. It's that cycle of life that is most challenging. And unfortunately, many people don't understand the challenges that older persons face, which is why several times we abuse them without us knowing that we're actually abusing them. So we have come to a situation where we have turned our parents, our grandparents, to caregivers
themselves,
when they themselves absolutely require care. So it is important.
Mr. Odebunmi, I must come to you and also ask about, societal challenges that elderly face in our society and just how these impact their quality of life. I mean, it's bad enough living with the high cost of living, with medical bills, and now, drugs are expensive. Times have changed at a rapid speed. How does this impact the life of the elderly?
All right. Well, the elder care in Africa is largely shaped by the economic situations and realities of today. And we it's a question that has come to the fore many times, that has been discussed, ever so often, that there needs to be a policy shift, there needs to be a re-education, and we need to have dedicated care system for the elderly. I think it's an area that, not personally, but it's something that has become a bit of interest to me as well. And something that I've commented a few times about. There needs to be a whole lot of things. There needs to be policy shift in terms of what we do to take care of the elderly within our society. And no doubt about it, there's been quite some level of abandonment for these senior citizens of our society. Quite a lot of other issues also can be attributed to this, but I'm sure that it's something that if we all have a concerted effort towards this, we can start shifting. Even we have some cultural issues as well. We have the issue of stigmatization. We have, issues of re-education on what the elderly needs, and some infrastructural issues that we have as well. Our roads are not particularly friendly for the elderly, and these are some of the things that we need to take a closer look at.
Mr. Odebunmi, now that we're talking about, just stigmatization and also the challenges when it comes to inclusivity in our public spaces, whether it's a cinema, it's not even built for those who are handicapped. No, talk more of the elderly. And so it begs to ask the question of stigmatization. I've been asked to ask the question again. I'm asking about stigmatization. You just talked about stigmatization and basically, how our culture in and of itself, and even how we build our public facilities are not accessible to the elderly. Talk more of those that are handicapped. And so one has to ask the question about stick with stigmatization now. And it takes us back to how we have cared for the elderly and the misconception or the conception that we have, or the perceivement that anyone who's of a certain age and is alone is either a witch or of witchcraft. We've seen that they are lynched for their old age. I don't know what religion plays in all of this. I don't know if it's a cultural belief or a
myth,
cultural
superstition,
system or norms that have affected that when they get to a certain age and, for example, they have dementia or something, they just immediately being tagged as witch or witches. Even a man is a witch. That's how Odebunmi.
Oh, okay. All right. So, sorry, there's been some interruptions in between your questions. I could hear a few other, stuff. So, if I hear you correctly, or if I can basically discern what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, look, growing up in the 70s in Lagos and, largely, even to this point, quite a lot of senior citizens that we find on the streets, a lot of the times we're meant to believe that the practicing witchcraft or is some divine punishment on their past deeds, and we're not well educated. Even up till now, we're not well educated to the issues that the senior citizens have, which is anxiety of abandonment, anxiety of proper health care. And these things, the society is taking it, and largely, like we've discussed, the society is taking it upon, itself to rephrase the narrative that these people are suffering from either witchcraft or they're suffering from, mental, incurable mental issues. Whereas all we need is just re-education and have a proper care for the elderly within our society. Many things can be attributed to this. Re-education is obviously very, very important. And our movies and, the films and the movies on our channels are not helping in any case or form. Usually any senior citizen or any of our aged, particularly women that you find, wandering around our streets, are usually termed to be practicing witchcraft and all of that. So these are some cultural norms that we need to, abnorms, if I can put it like that we really need to correct and, educate people more on the needs and the care that the elderly need and they deserve.
Well, Mr. Odebunmi, I want to thank you very much for implicating Nollywood there, because actually it is a tool that could disseminate plenty of information, and they're dropping the ball, apparently. But thank you for noting that. Let me come back to the studio here with Dr. Odunsi in the studio with us. Now, Doctor, let's take a look at society now and government or governance, and let's see what their responsibility is to the elderly. It would seem that there's not much, like Judith noted, when it comes to structural buildings or this or that, there's not much consideration being given to the elderly. When it comes to the health, we don't see much of that. I had to take my father to the bank one time in his condition, and there wasn't any consideration to having these, or maybe someone come over home to tend to him, so we had to take him there, and it was very tedious. So what do you think could be done, or what is being done currently that people may not know about when it comes to caregiving for the elderly in these instances and government's participation?
Okay, thank you very much. I was going to speak to two things that Mr. Odebunmi mentioned. I mentioned the concepts that we call ageism, which is people's preconceived ideas about older persons. Meaning, when they're a certain age, they're either frail, they're either useless, they've become a burden, and there are 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds that are very, very strong, and they can still contribute a lot to the society. Several of them have a lot to give, but we are not giving them the opportunity to contribute. Several of them can still do things. I was talking about a certain client I had at a time. She was bedbound. Yeah, she was bedbound, meaning that she couldn't move. But right in that our room, she was making a lot of money. What was she doing? She was using her skills. She could make beads. She could make flower vases. She would make beautiful things. Some people would order from Canada, from America. So right in that our room, she was over 80, but she was still contributing to the society, to the economy. So we have several aged people like that. So we should not look at old people as always problematic, because as an called it, their problem is too much. They're too problematic and all that. That's one. And then the concept of witches and wizards. Many times that comes from from persons who have dementia. And several people have no idea what dementia is all about. Now, I run a class, and when I bring students to class, and I teach dementia, many times they're crying. Many times they're crying because they've never realized that their father, their grandfather, their grandmother, this was what they were battling with, and they never knew. And they tagged them all sorts. Some of them will tell you the way they treated them, because to them, the woman was lying, the man was being mean, was saying things that were not supposed to be, and to them, you're just being wicked. And that's dementia. That's why they're stoned. That's why they're called witches. That's why they're... However, if only we can educate people that there's a condition that's commoner in older persons. Not every older person will have it, but they're commoner in older people, and this is not them being wicked. This is a condition that they have to grapple with. And this is how we should care for those people in that category. It's absolutely very important. Now to your question. Thankfully, now there is a federal government parastatal that many people don't know about. It's relatively new. It's called the National Senior Citizen Center. And that, like I said, it's new. But then, what are they trying to do? They're trying to associate with older people. They're trying to bring older people together, and they have several things. In fact, some of the older persons are being economically, empowered to do things. I mean, the fact that you're retired, you're 60, you're 70, doesn't mean you're useless. Just get them something to do, something they would love to do. Some of them are retired professors, retired consultants in different fields. you could still mentor people. You mentor other people, younger ones, in your field at a cost. Normally, there will not be a cost attached to it. But now you're trying to say there should be a cost.
Just so they're able to also still make a living, even with their age. They've got so much brain power anyway.
Thank you.
So we might as well put that to use. But is the government making facilities available so that these people could take their parents, or so that people could take aged parents there and be taken care of? Elderly care homes in Nigeria is a thing I've only seen once, and that was in one of our News Central reports. If you remember, during the Christmas holidays, we had a report there where we took a look at this elderly people's home, and it was very interesting to see that we had such a facility here in Lagos. The first one I've seen, by the way.
Yes, we do. Yes, we have elderly care facilities in Lagos. We have one for government, which I think is grossly inadequate.
So there's a government one then?
There's a government one.
So that's it?
There's a government one, but one facility for the whole of Lagos is not sufficient. But I'm also aware that they're working on other ones, at least in all senatorial districts, I think I know. But they're private. There are several private older persons care homes. The challenges will be that even when it is obvious that this person requires to be in a facility, we have families. In fact, many times I call it the Third World War in families, because many people feel that because you're suggesting that this person needs to be in the residential facility, you are dumping them, and you're not responsible children. However, that might be the best place for that person at that particular time.
So it's a reorientation thing for us.
Absolutely. The family, people need to know that there's several, in fact, the people who come to the facility, I run a facility, the people who come to the facility and they tell their children, I'm not going back. They come for respite care, and they tell their children, I'm not going back, I'm okay here, I want to die here. No. They come here and they say, oh, one was telling me yesterday, I'm going home, and I said, bye-bye. He said, I'm going nowhere, but the families need to support their decisions. Yeah.
Let me come to you, Mr. Odebunmi, and ask about, re-education and reorientation, and, the concerted efforts that have to be made. I've always said this, and I'll say it again, there's a national orientation agency that we have, and sometimes I think, I'm just going to be honest, I feel they've dropped the ball 9 times out of 10. There's not enough that is being done. But again, I'm just a journalist, I don't know anything. But let me ask you instead, sir, you are long in this, and you have seen the terrain. Is the National Orientation Agency doing enough? Should there be more concerted efforts? And should it be a PPP or a synergy between the private, public, and of course the media to continue to reorientate the minds of Nigerians? Mr. Odebunmi.
Sorry, the sound quality is a bit fuzzy, but I can pick up a few words from what you said, and let me just imagine the question and respond to it. I did hear you talking about facilities for private facilities, care homes for the elderly. Yes, is this needed? Yes. We need more of it. We need more of what our doctors just talked about as well. Quite a few voluntary organizations are out there. Government needs to also be seen to be encouraging, the private sector in doing this and delivering this, because government, as we've realized, government can't do everything. But there are opportunities. In fact, if you ask me, there are business opportunities, in care homes. And I'm sure quite a whole lot of Nigerians are beginning to think in this direction of how to take care of their elderly. Because if you really truly look at it, due to urbanization, modernization, and economic struggles, a whole lot of people have actually moved on, and left their elderlies in the rural areas. And even when we send money to them, don't forget that the first caregiver to them is probably unemployed as well. So you're not just sending money to your elderly, you're also taking care of the person that is taking care of them. So, but when it comes, for instance, I went to a foundation, a sixth foundation. They a new organization in Lagos as working towards, they do this voluntary services, to take care of the elderly, and you could see the happiness, this open day they had, where they had a whole lot of families, came around and to the home. Some brought food, we brought music and all of that. And you could see the happiness on the faces of these senior citizens. So we need more of that. We definitely need more of that. And we hope that, the government creates an enabling environment for such investments, because I can tell you that there are business opportunities there too, because quite a lot of, Nigerians are believing in that, we jettisoning that opinion, that is a taboo to take your elderly to a care home. Mm-hmm. But if they're taken a place where they can see their peers, where they can relate, they can play games, there's music, there's food, that's all the elderly, that's what they need. Wow. They just need a bit of care, because they've been there as well, and they know what it means. And those little things that we consider, or that we don't tend to consider, are quite important in the care of an elderly person.
Okay, then. Well, thank you, Mr. Odebunmi. I'm coming back to Dr. Odunsi here. Now, I'm in this situation currently, and I'm talking from experience when I say that this period is also just, that's what it is. It's a period, and it will end. But most families do not know what to do in this period they're in when it comes to taking care of elderly ones, because eventually there's an eventuality that everybody's walking towards or moving towards, whether we like it or not. It's going to end. When that end comes, what I notice is that families do not know what to do. They do not know that within this period they're supposed to get documentation ready. And these documentation are very important, and it involves doctors' signatures and the kind of care that has been given to these, well, sometimes patients. What do families need to know when it comes to these documentations or these processes that happen at the end of life?
Thank you very much. What I realize is that many times, rather than families accepting the fact that they're nearing the end, their loved ones are nearing the end, they're in denial. And because they're in denial, they're not able to do the things that they're meant to do with their older ones. To accept, do an assessment, and accept the fact that it's going to end. When, you don't know. And start having those conversations. For whatever reasons, I don't know why our parents would wait till they're very old and they're to have certain discussions with us.
I think you should tell those discussions. Let's be very open about it. Let's start with will writing.
Absolutely. Will writing, open discussions about what they have that comes in the will, what has happened, secrets.
Yes.
Secrets. Pains they've carried and they've shared with no one. Reconciliations they've got to make. They're very important. Some of those reconciliations are immediate family reconciliations. It might be even reconciling the children, because many times you leave that, you could obviously see siblings rivalry. Yeah. You should address it before you leave, And I am of opinion that people should even discuss their will before they go.
What I find very interesting in all of this is that it's parents that, or rather it's individuals or adults that have, polyamorous relationships, or they are in in polyamorous relationship, whether they're married to 2 wives or 3 wives, and they have abundance of children. There's always this closed off thing to share the secrets, and sometimes they take it to the grave, and you now see the aftermath, which is tussles and years of them in courts. By far one of the largest cases that I have in courts is always inheritance cases and will contentions. And I find that happens oftentimes with people or individuals or adults who, especially men, who have been in polyamorous relationship. But also, there are also people who, towards the end of their lives as well, you can see that they are opening up more, they want to share more, they are calling you more, they want to get closer more. And in hindsight, when they're gone, you realize the reason why they were doing it was because they were coming to an end. I must say thank you, Doctor, for taking out the time to join us, Dr. Odunsi, and also to Mr. Odebunmi, who joined us live from Abuja to just give us insight. It's very clear that our elderly matters. So if you have misconceptions about them, stigmatization about them, or just preconceived notions about them, we hope that this conversation we've had has been able to clear the air and maybe have a different perspective and foresight on how you treat your elderly, and most importantly, those around us. It doesn't have to be your family, it doesn't have to be a loved one. It could be a neighbor, anyone. Be kind and be gentle. They've lived long lives and exhausting lives, especially living here in Nigeria.